Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Denis Clement from Critical Minerals America. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you, Tracy. How are you?
And let me just clarify, it's Critical Minerals Americas, yes?
It is.
And I have really enjoyed reading about your company and your SBH project. I was reading that it has one of the largest known accumulations of recoverable critical minerals and rare earths in North America. So, how about we start there? How did you find this project?
Well, this project was identified back in the late 90s by a previous company called DNI Metals, of which I was chairman. In the early 2005 or six, we started working aggressively on the project. And over the next 8 years, we spent about 12, $14 million building up the project, identifying all the opportunities. In 2014, we isolated an area of 4.4 billion tons of recoverable critical minerals. And we did a PEA. The PEA was done by Apex Engineering, Hatch, National Research Council did all of much of the work. The PEA came out. It was had a great value on it, and everybody laughed at us. Said, "No, we buy that stuff from the Chinese. We don't need it domestically." So we basically mothballed the project. We got quite discouraged and we mothballed it. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I had founded a company called Oh My Gold Mines, which turned out to be very successful. Thank you very much. But as we were taking it public, I woke up one morning and realized, gee, I had the biggest critical minerals asset in the world at one time. I should retrieve it. So some of it was still left in the old company. We purchased that for cash and shares in Critical Minerals Americas. And then I took my credit card out and staked 600 square kilometers on top of that for a total of about 830 square kilometers. We have since dropped 400 square kilometers because there wasn't really any of the real recoverable shales on that. And we now have 467 square kilometers, which is 100% under license with the Alberta government.
I have a lot of questions for you, Denis, but let's just start with, you've been moving aggressively with this project ever since you pulled your credit card out. So, for instance, you finished your 43-101 in December. Can you tell us about this?
Well, the 43-101, we went back and did some work. We had 90 gigs of data from the previous work. So we wanted to recompile all the data. It was a lot. It was a lot of very detailed work was done. So while we were doing that, we went back in the field, did some collection of some more assets, and then we updated the whole project with the 43-101. It was issued at the end of October. The highlights were things we already knew. This is a massive project. There's about 250 square kilometers of these mineralized black shales, recoverable mineralized black shales. A total of, in the report, they suggest there's somewhere between 38 billion and 50 billion tons of these shales on our property. What's interesting is that's at a $10 to $12 US cutoff in valuation. So that's a minimum value before he even gets into it. So it gives you the scale of the project. Other things that were highlights in the 43-101 was a repeat of all the geotechnical work and the recovery work that we'd done through bioleaching and stuff like that. It then suggested a program that we are now about to implement. The program is to isolate two areas of about 18 square kilometers each, called the Buckton South and the Asphalt. They will each, we'll drill those off, and all we're doing is upgrading the drilling to reportable resources. We know they're there because we've drilled into it before, and we will get somewhere between 4 and 7 billion tons in Buckton South, again, of recoverable mineralized black shales. And asphalt, we expect to get about 3.5 to 5.5 billion tons. So these will be two isolated areas that will then go into a PEA. We'll recast the PEA that we did back in 2014, but upgrade it all to current standards, current numbers, and get it all ready. That'll take about 12 to 18 months. It's not an expensive program. It's only about $12 million to do it all. because we spent a lot of the money and done all the work, and we kind of have all the backup to it. So,
So we both know that location is a huge competitive element in any deal that you do. For instance, oh my gold that you mentioned earlier, the Black Shale in Alberta. Tell us a little bit about more about your location and how competitive that is for anyone involved in critical minerals Americas.
yeah, I'll take that a bit further. It's a very, very, very unique project for many reasons. Um, Obviously, there's deposits of critical minerals and rare earths around all over the place, but you have to have certain characteristics to make them work. Obviously, the size and scale of ours is very unique because I don't think there's any out there that have that type of size and scale. And then there's the other characteristics that are most important, as you mentioned, is location. This is surrounded by infrastructure. It's 120 miles from Fort McMurray. There's roads to it. It's very, very, very accessible. Other characteristics, can you mine it? Well, this is very soft shale. This is not a big hard rock deposit. It's at surface, so it's just a free dig operation when it gets going. Your jurisdiction is important. That's another characteristic. This is Alberta. This is Canada. Very, very, very um, supportive of this type of development. I met with the Minister of Natural Resources in Vancouver 2 weeks ago, and they're fully supportive of our project. And then you have to have resources. You need water, you need power, you need people. And Fort McMurray has all of those resources because it has a vast array of operations nearby. So it's not isolated. It's right in the middle of all that infrastructure. And then you need some technical expertise. It's fine to find these things, but somebody's going to have to process them one day. And that's not being done in the Western world, as we well know. So we've teamed up. We brought in Ken Bradley as our special advisor. Ken was Assistant Deputy Minister of Resources in Alberta some years ago. But more importantly, Ken was Vice Chairman of AOSTRA. AOSTRA was the Alberta Oil Sands, um, um, the Alberta Oil Sands, sorry, Technology Research Association. His group basically did the work to bring the oil sands into commercialization. So Alberta wants to diversify its economy, and Alberta has a very strong history, technical history, in working with resources to bring them to commercialization. So part of our project will be in cooperation with all of them. The actual developing a processing hub. That'll be done a little bit separately, but the core project will use our feedstock, ideally, to create a centralized hub for processing vast amounts of critical minerals and rare earth elements.
And in addition to Ken Bradley, you've also attracted some significant talent onto your team. Would you like to mention that?
Well, Dan LaRue is our VP Exploration. Dan is one of the top geologists I've ever worked with. I've worked with Dan for a long, long time. He's totally, fully familiar with this. John McKenzie, our CFO, of course, is our Chief Operating Officer as well. And he's the poor fellow that has to do all the real hard work. And on our board, we've been very fortunate. Starting with Sonia Savage. Sonia Savage has joined our board. Sonia was the Minister of Natural Resources under Jason Kenney and the Minister of the Environment under Premier Smith. Sonia is retired from government and works as an advisor and a consultant, and she's probably one of the more influential business people in Alberta, and she is very committed to the advancement of this project. In addition, we recruited Greg Turnbull, who's joined the board, and Greg was the chairman of McCarthy's and out west. McCarthy Tetro was a highly experienced M&A and finance lawyer. He was also chairman of the Alberta Health Authority, so he's been involved at highest levels of Alberta government, and all are very committed to the advancement of critical minerals, Americas.
Well, I'll tell you, I know our co-chair, Jack Lifton, loves Black Shale. We were just talking about it this weekend. And for those of you interested in finding out more about Critical Minerals Americas, please go to the following website. And yes, you're going to be at PDAC. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
You're going to be at PDAC, and of course, you'll be a speaker at the Critical Minerals Institute Summit in May. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining us today, Dennis.
Thank you, Tracy. Have a great day.